it is literally not safe in our society to speak about abrupt climate change or collapse of systems. And so what we're hoping to do in this body of work is we're creating those safe containers that we wished we had had when we were first exposed.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm in Grass Valley, California, and I have guests from Boulder, Colorado, and Ashland, Oregon. I'm with Carolyn Baker and Dean Walker, who are presenting something wonderful coming up. But let me tell you a little bit about them first. Some of you have already met Carolyn. She's been on Peak Moment a few times. Carolyn is the author of, now listen, I have book titles. You can do it like poetry, like a gestalt. Navigating the Coming Chaos, Sacred Demise, Collapsing Consciously, Love in the Age of Ecological Apocalypse, Dark Gold, The Human Shadow in the Global Crisis, and most recently, Return to Joy with Andrew Harvey. Carolyn has been an avid watcher of current history and brings her psychological studies to how do we as humans be together, be in this coming time. So thank you, Carolyn, for joining me. Dean Walker from Ashland, Oregon has worked in transformational training and counseling for 25 years or more for corporations and nonprofits, all the way to couples wanting good counseling for intimacy. Dean is the author of a just published book called The Impossible Conversation, which we'll hear more about. It's very relevant to the topic at hand here. So Dean, thank you for joining us too.
Thank you, Janaea. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much for having us both.
Well, you two are launching something that I think is fresh, wonderful, needed in our time by many people who may not even know that they need what you're bringing forth. You call it living resilience. I'd like to know, what do you mean by resilience? Carolyn, can you give us an idea about that?
Yeah, resilience is very simple, but also very profound. The simple definition for me is the life-giving ability to shift from a reaction of denial or despair to learning, growing, and thriving in the midst of challenge. And in order to do this, we need to reconnect, and this is really the crux of our work, reconnect with ourselves, with each other, and Earth. We'll be talking about that today, and we'll be talking about that in our classes. And how do we do that? Well, we need some skills, we need some practices, and we desperately need the support of each other, because we cannot do this alone. Most of us who are aware of what's happening in the world and the global crisis feel as if we're walking with a foot in two worlds. You know, there's what I really know about what's going on, which I don't get a lot of support for talking about in this culture. And over here is the everyday world where a lot of people don't know what I know, or they haven't bothered to research what I've researched. Not that they're less intelligent or I'm better. It's not about that at all. It's just that we're holding these two opposites, and we need a lot of support for doing that.
Mm.
You know, you're mentioning about the world crisis. There are many people who haven't researched in depth, and I will point out that you do it every single day. Carolyn's, your email daily digest of the news with links that are really well filtered for us to look at things that are crumbling or not right in social world, environmental world, economic, you know, as well as a few things that are promising. All of those things that you bring to us every day. So you're immersed in it. I mean, you're swimming in news. Dean, I want to turn to you, Dean, because what you've done in the Impossible Conversation, particularly the first part, the sober data, I would love to hand the mic to you for a moment to talk about what Carolyn refers to as, the crisis around us. You've done us all a gift by vetting some important information. So that's part of the context for why people want the tools and the support from one another. So Dean, give us a picture of what you did.
Well, thanks. I really bumped face first into some extraordinary data in a presentation 3 years ago about abrupt climate change, which is very different than the usual conversation about climate change that we might hear on the news and so on. And basically it sounded like either this was the weirdest, wackiest tinfoil hat craziness that I'd ever heard, or this is actually the transformation of humanity. And I immediately set about learning how to learn about climate change so I could vet the material. And that took me a few months. And it was during those few months, and especially when I finally did vet the data to my satisfaction, I realized I should write a book, because the vast majority of people won't take months to learn how to learn about climate change, vet the material, blah, that's a lot. And ironically, as if someone were to, kind enough to read the book as you have, I think you'll discover that what started out as the crux issue, climate change, parts per million of CO2, and these pieces that we do hear about in the news, I actually had to get out of that realm. I had to get out of that conversation as quickly as I could, because I soon discovered that is where climate change deniers live. That's where the whole conversation has been invented, and where it's been nurtured into this remarkably cynical, toxic aberration in human experience. I obviously have very little respect for what it is. I consider it just this side of evil. And so what I shifted to—
I'm not clear, Dee, just something. Are you saying that the conversation that most of the world is having relative to climate change, how it's being manipulated, how is it evil?
I'm saying that particularly the climate change deniers, have invented out of whole cloth something that is basically saying, we believe in science when it serves our purposes, and when it doesn't, for instance, this climate change stuff, which implies that we have to change our lifestyle, we're saying that science is not valid.
Okay.
And we're holding on to it doggedly, and we're now filling all the ranks of your government administrations around the world. We've got power in corporations around the world, and we're running the show, which I think is especially true in the USA right now. It makes Carolyn has a saying that she uses quite often, speaking truth to power. For anyone to try and speak the truth of actually just science, just straight up clear science, is now a dangerous conversation to be had, given this toxic, cynical denier conversation. And I bring that up in context of the book and this conversation, just because previews of coming attractions, if someone were to read my book, I had to go somewhere else, to some other type of study of our impact on the planet, so that I wouldn't have to be up to my earlobes in the climate denier conversation. It was so daunting, so exhausting. So that's what the next couple of chapters are about, is to look at things, for instance, where I've always gone to recharge my inner batteries is the ocean.
Yeah.
And there's a segment in the book where I look at, okay, so what's our impact on the ocean? There's no climate denier conversation about the ocean. I can just go there, look for the science, and make that a part of the lists and so on that I provide. And I've got to tell you, it was just as heartbreaking, just as daunting as the climate change conversation. perhaps even more so because just for me personally, it's such a dear, dear aspect of being alive. So just to fast forward to our conversation now and what Carolyn and I are offering, I think we're both a wee bit on the selfish side when we're creating, because we're both creating what we most wanted when we first got immersed in this conversation. It's such a daunting, oh my God conversation. And on top of that now, it is literally not safe in our society to speak about abrupt climate change or collapse of systems. And so what we're hoping to do in this body of work is we're creating those safe containers that we wished we had had when we were first exposed.
Yes. You did what I wanted when I heard Guy McPherson as well, talking about abrupt climate change. Is this for real, or is this just, somebody? And there are enough substantiation in the book that I feel like, great, this gives me a condensed version to give someone who says, nah, we can mitigate our way out of this. We can geoengineer our way out of it. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Powerful help to those of us, me included, who aren't going to take the hours and hours and hours to go vet all of that information. Okay, Carolyn, you want to round out sort of more of the life we are all, the world, the crisis, the world we are all in, that you two have as your context for the living resilience?
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about how specifically we're going to address this. We are creating a website for the whole body of work that's going to have amazing content, but we are also going to be offering 2 pilot courses, one in September in Ashland, Oregon, one in October in Boulder, Colorado. And we're kind of basing it on 3 different approaches to this. First of all, paying attention to really look at this sober data and our global and local situation and what it has cost us to be disconnected from ourselves, each other, and Earth, and be able to see our world through the lens of interrelatedness. And then we're going to focus on presence, paying attention first, presence. Because when we reconnect with the fullness of our being, we're going to relate to the world around us in a more vibrant, heartful presence that surpasses the way we're used to relating in this culture. And then some real specific practices, which we're offering in the content of our website, and which we're going to be offering a lot of in our courses. And what we're kind of, promising is a safe container, Dean mentioned, in which we can explore all of these topics, a clear understanding of how we arrived at this predicament. And we're going to offer tools and, as I said, practices that connect us with our inner wisdom, with other people, and with the earth. And we're going to talk a little bit about our personal and cultural shadow, and how we got to this place and how we can heal the shadow. And we're going to offer all kinds of access to advanced resources, more online content, resilience coaching if people want that, and master classes. And we're going to help people move through their resistance by really allowing their hearts to be, as we say, cracked open and befriending our emotions, expanding our emotional range, but doing that in the context of support, of not being alone with our feelings about what's going on, using deep work and deep, long-standing rituals and processes that honor our humanity, our compassion, and our love of life. And then an opportunity is going to be offered to really reinvent our life purpose, our mission, and our vision within a reconnected life. What does a reconnected life really look like and feel like?
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. And I salute you for deciding to tackle that much. In a way, part of what you both speak about in your works is there's an old story that we are all living in our culture, partly it's the infinite growth on a finite planet story, but it's also the story of we humans are at the top of the pinnacle, and we can do whatever we well want, and we're starting to get some blowback on that now with in the environment. So what I am picturing is that particularly your workshops, your live workshops, will be a chance to sort of step towards or step into living another story.
Absolutely.
And finding a next story. I mean, it's, as you said at the beginning, living in two worlds. We're still going to have a foot in the regular world. We'll still go to the grocery store, probably in our car for most of us. And the other side will be looking at, how am I reconnecting deeper with the earth? And in this culture that says, let's avoid all emotion except maybe anger and violence on the television only thing.
Right.
How can we make it safe to feel?
Is that a question?
That was a reflection, but I feel free, you or Dean, to just talk a little bit more about that, because I could imagine people both being excited at such a prospect, and it's also daunting.
I just going to pick up the thread that I left off before. Even the biggest voices in the world of environmental activism, social justice activism, they tend to also plant themselves in the language of and the context of business as usual. For instance, when some of the major environmental organizations talk about what's it going to take to fix our world or to get ourselves back on a good track or whatever it is, the conversation is almost always couched in what will it take to bring our economy back to full force? When will we be back to 2, 3, 4% growth? That growth is what's normal and natural and important for us to return to in our world. And I hate to break it to people, but everywhere I looked during these years of research, and not just about the environment and not just about extinction of animal species and so on, but also similarly, or side by side with that, the track that we've been on economically in the human systems and economics, we are so close to a complete collapse, economic collapse. It's just extraordinary we haven't had it yet. And so within that, I again, I'll just call myself on it. I'm creating these courses and this body of work with Carolyn because this is the kind of stuff I needed to know. I want people to have these tools. I want them to understand we have access to other people, other experts, for instance, in the economics realm, that we can just tie people straight into those. We can give them abundant resources that Carolyn was talking about on our website, so that people can understand, how we've been running the economics of the world is actually a direct function that connects intimately with how we've destroyed the earth systems. And without knowing that, why on earth would somebody want to go to some strange 3-day workshop about remaking your purpose in the world? Who wants to do that when I could be drinking beer and watching the football game? But it starts to make sense if we can see, as one of our allies, Chris Martenson, likes to quote from Leonardo da Vinci, we must learn to see that everything is connected to everything. And that's if I could say one trajectory about the 3-day workshop or a number of the programs we're designing, is to slow us all down. We move so darn quickly and we override so completely our inner wisdom, our relationship with others, and our relationship with the earth. If we can be given a safe environment in which to slow down and truly feel and truly get some of these core distinctions, like everything is connected to everything, there becomes like an aha moment of, this is why I might want to reinvent my sense of purpose in the world, my mission statement, if you will. Some people do that as in their coaching or in their executive work or whatever. There's so much done around having a sense of purpose-driven life or business. This, I believe, goes right to the core and says, it's time to reinvent that. It's time to retool ourselves for a more human, a more life-based orientation to being alive.
And I'd just like to add a bit to that, if I may. Dean was talking about all the things we get in our inboxes that are pretty business as usual focused. And we talk about, we're both life coaches, and we talk a lot about how our coaching offers something different. It's not a business as usual model. In that, a lot of people seek coaching because they want to become more successful. As Dean said, they want to have a sense of purpose. Maybe they want to do better in their interpersonal reactions with folks and have a better relationship, maybe lose weight or whatever. So there's a lot of self-improvement focus in most of the coaching that we've seen in our experience. And our focus in coaching is to coach within a context. The context is this global crisis, because I'm telling you, I can tell you this as a former psychotherapist of 17 years, that whether or not we are conscious of what this global crisis is doing to us and how it's influencing us, it is. And, everywhere I go these days, there's a sense of anxiety. There's a sense of despair. Guardian headline in a story I'm going to post tomorrow in the Daily News Digest is despair is rampant in many parts of the United States. This accounts for the opioid epidemic. And, and a person might say, well, I'm not one of those people, I got a pretty good life and I'm not in despair. But I'm telling you that this global crisis is affecting all of us on many levels. And so we offer coaching and we offer workshops and trainings in the context of this crisis so that we can build resilience, not so we can become survivalists and store lots of beans and bullets, but so that we can really, truly be resilient emotionally, spiritually, physically, and in every way as we navigate this unprecedented experience that really humanity has never had to face.
The planet has not had to face, and of course humanity.
That's right. Right.
And all of those conditions are, we're pushing record everything.
Yeah.
Record declines of resources and record population and so on. And the attitudes, I think you're right that people feel something. May not know what. There's some tension, some anxiety. I think for a lot of folks, as Dean mentioned, override is like,
yeah.
I'm going to keep myself busy. I've got a job. I'm trying to, in America at least, keep the job I've got.
Yeah.
Hold the family together, whatever it is, because those pressures to move things, shredding things are happening. I get that people are grasping for anything that can help look like it's a way out of this predicament.
I don't think we're grappling with just this gigantic stack of vexing problems. We have those. And we're in no way suggesting that people should give up on that or stop being ingenious or stop getting together and protesting or being politically active or being their creative selves in the name of solving those problems. Please continue. What else is there to do? Mm-hmm. But I think it's extraordinarily important what you just said, Janaea, that what we are grappling with is something that humanity has never had to grapple with before, which is an existential level, global level predicament or set of predicaments, things that really allow us no solutions. as problems yield solutions. In predicaments, we really just get to face consequences. So if we look back at one of the easy signposts to point at, just because we all know a little bit about it, is when Al Gore put out the Inconvenient Truth film and book. And he was basically ridiculed, laughed at, ignored, you name the kind of derogatory attention, and he got it, and he still gets it. There's a reason why I call this thing the impossible conversation. The impossible conversation really has very little to do with parts per million of CO2 or parts per billion of methane, and so on with the climate conversation. Every single metric in that domain has been accelerating since I took on writing the book and researching it. But really, the message of our times, the calling of our times, I would assert, is who will we be together in the face of these predicaments? And the key word there is being. Who will we be together? What will the qualities of the word that Carolyn used earlier, what will be the qualities of presence we bring forth as these waves, these huge waves of stressors, global waves of stressors, not to mention the local ones, as they come one after the other, probably with very little or any pause. How is it possible to not only survive or endure those waves? But getting back to your very first question with us, which was, what is resilience? The notion of resilience comes in a most extraordinary way, in a way that's transformational. To me, what truly qualifies as transformational is something that some set of skills and capacities that we can work on together that allows us to be in the middle of that wave after wave of chaos and remarkable existential challenge, and to be thriving in it. Imagine being able to build our skills, grow our relatedness with one another and with the earth in the midst of those waves. That's transformational resilience. It's quite extraordinary, and I can't think of anything more important to be doing in the face of that word that you brought up, Janae, predicaments.